What up, everybody? Sven Diesel here. We're going to be tying up a Peccary soft hackle today. I really been playing around with this as body material, and it's really fun. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a stealth hook in the vise. This is a C10. The C series is a curved hook. We're going to be using some wax thread for this. This is by Semperfli. It's in an 8/0. You could use a 12/0 as well. And in this, we're using a tan color. I'm going for natural tones. The color combinations are endless, like on every fly I tie, but the only limit is your imagination. But we're going to go ahead and get the thread back to beyond the bend. I'd say it's almost a little bit past the barb. And to make our life a little bit easier, I'm going to trim out this thread, and then I'll reposition my hook to tie in the tail. And you don't need to do this, but it makes it a little bit easier, especially if you're new to tying. That way you're able to tie in the tail without it being buggered up in your vise. So we're going to use some Whiting Farms. This is a Brahma hen. This is the cape, and I'm going to use the shoulders here. And so I will go ahead and take a feather like this, and I don't want to use the very tip of this, so I'm going to strip back, preen back, get a nice little crease here to where the fibers start to become even, and I'll go ahead and just snip this out. And then we're going to pull forward 3 to 4 to 5 fibers on each side, and I'll go ahead and pull a little bit of fluff there. This isn't actually the fluff, sorry. Pull a little bit of the fibers. If you're being stingy, you don't need to do this, but for the video, I'm just making it easier. And then I'll just go ahead and put that V, and I'll tie in the stem right there where I ended my thread with 3 to 4, no more than that, because then it gets a little difficult to pull this. And then keeping that on the top of the shank, I'll pull it through and create our tail. And so those are fibers that are all, they're not even, but I think it's got a nice taper to it. We've got some barring, and then because we're going to be using the Peccary for our body, I want to make sure this is a very uniform thread, and that way I'll tie my stem all the way up to about there, because that's about where we're going to end with the body. Now I'm going to bring my thread back, making sure to do touching wraps, keeping this body really, really smooth. The Peccary is a little bit thicker, so you don't need to worry about that too much. And I actually soak mine first in a little bit of water. Here they come in a little patch like this. This is by Nature Spirit. And I'm just going to pull off, since this is a size 10, I'm going to use a little bit of the longer one that I have on the patch because they vary in length. I want to make sure I have enough so I don't have to tie in 2 of these. And then I'm going to tie in the tip right here, making sure they kind of have a little bit of a flatter side to it, but I want to get it so that flatter side is ready to wrap, because soaking it helps, but I found the tips of these really still kind of like to split or fray, kind of similar to doing a biot. Soaking it helps, but we're going to make sure with this first wrap, and I'm going to use some Hackle pliers for this to make sure to be real good on that first wrap, not to pull it out. But once we get that started and we kind of figure out which side's the flat side, I wouldn't say it's flat, it's more of an oval. I don't know. It's once you've tried it, you can figure it out. But we're just going to do touching wraps all the way up to where our thread is. And I love these because they have such a unique look to them. But also, every time you tie one in, it's going to be different. Because this barring, or I don't know what it's called, as you can see right there, all of a sudden, boom, we went from dark to white or cream, and then we're back to dark again. And this side looks different, the other side looks different. It's really unique and cool, and I've seen a lot of guys tying with this, and finally got some in to try on a few patterns that I've been tying up for a long time, and just something to switch it up. So we'll go ahead and get it, leave us some space, at least 1 or 2 wraps of this behind the eye, or an eye length. We're going to be doing our soft hackle a little bit different than I typically do them as well. So tie it off real secure. It's a thicker material, so I'm going to do a triple tie off, meaning one wrap behind, two in front, one behind, two in front, and then I'll go ahead and secure a couple more wraps. But before we move on to our next step, I'm going to put a little bit of a very, very, very thin resin on here, and this is by Solarez. It's bone dry. It comes with a brush applicator, and it's able to just basically work it in a little bit and get a real thin layer over that. I might have just put too much, but I'll spread that around, covering the entire shank, making sure not to get any on our tail, but trying to keep it just even and real thin layer, protect it, make it more durable, and cover up the imperfections of the material, because now it looks more like a smooth body and real neat. And then I'm going to rotate it as I cure it. If you put too much on, you'll create kind of a scud look, having a clear case on the outside. And so you want to make sure just a very, very thin layer, and that's why I use this thin resin with the brush applicator. So right here we're going to do a dub loop. Normally I just do a thorax with some dubbing or something like that, but I just must have been up too late last night and decided I want to be crazy, so I'm going to utilize some of the feather that we used for the tail, and I'm just going to take a few of the straight fibers and a few of the fluff, and I'm just going to pull it off like I'm stripping it, but keep it aligned, and that's what we're going to put into our dub loop. So you can see right there we got some fluff and some stiff fibers, and we also still have a little bit of this stem on there, and I'll show you how to fix that. But I'll put it in my dub loop, and it's kind of hard to see this on the camera, but basically I'm going to trim out this stem. You need some real sharp scissors, because if they're not sharp, it's going to move those so they're not aligned to how they were on the feather. And then I'll kind of space them out just a little bit, and we'll go ahead and start spinning that up. What this does is it basically allows us to wrap over itself, creating that dub ball with the fluff in there, but also give us some longer fibers to kind of create a dual soft hackle. I've done some different color soft hackles where I'll tie in like a red feather or a yellow feather or an orange feather, and then the natural feather to create kind of a soft hackle hot spot with the feathers. But I just thought this would be very, very natural tone, and it fit perfect. And I love the fluff. They kind of get a little bit more flowy when they're wet, and it is going to provide a nice base for our front soft tackle feather. And so I'll just kind of clean that up with a couple wraps after tying it off, making sure I've got a nice smooth little gap right there to tie in my next step of the Brahma hen. And this is actually a saddle, and so we'll going with sticking with the natural colors. And what you want to do with that feather is just prep it by getting it to a triangle, and then we'll go ahead and tie it in with 2 wraps behind, and then I'll kind of clean that up just by pulling them back over itself, making sure this is nice and tight, because I've had more feathers pop out when doing these. But we'll go ahead and get those fibers so they're going back, and we'll start wrapping. I like that these feathers are a little bit longer, so I don't always need the hackle pliers. They help, but I don't need to use it with this. And we'll just continue preening those back and wrapping around, getting a nice thick front, something that's going to push the water. And you can see how with that dubbing fluff behind this, it's going to really push these fibers out and should swing or ride in a drift real nice. Now I could have selected a little bit bigger feather fibers for this one, meaning longer fibers, but this will do. It should be nice and catch fish. I don't know if the fish care. It's just those fishermen that seem to care. And we'll go ahead and tie that off from front and behind. And I have a couple stragglers here that are just being difficult. And so I'll show you a little trick here. I just take my other hand, being careful when you're preening not to put your finger into the point, and those really just don't want to cooperate. You can either snip it back or pull them back and give them a nice crease. There we go. Now everything's back. We'll do a couple wraps right there, and then we'll do a whip finish just to build a nice small head, and that's pretty much it. I will coat this in some resin, but this is a real natural looking material fly and great colors. I like how these bodies should be unique, and you can see right there, that just looks cool. It's protected with the body's protected with the resin. All these fibers are soft hackles, and so they should flow really well, absorb a little bit of water, and so it should ride real nice in the water. And we'll just make sure this is solid with a nice resin head, and we'll cure it up for about 5 to 10 seconds, and we're ready to fish this. So the Brahma hens come in a lot of different colors, and so you could mix and match color combos on this and to whatever you want. Options are endless. Throw some ice dub in there or some sort of flashy dub instead of the fluff, but tie some up, fish it. Thanks for watching.